June 1947. The Strait of Malacca, the narrow choke point between Malaysia and the Indonesian island of Sumatra, where hundreds of merchant vessels pass every single day. A Dutch freighter called the Ourang Medan is somewhere in those waters, and someone aboard is tapping out a message in Morse code. Frantic, desperate, breaking every protocol. The message reaches at least 2 American ships. When the radio operators decode it, they go pale. SOS from Ourang Medan. We float. All officers, including the captain, dead in chart room and on the bridge. Probably whole of crew dead. Then, a scramble of confused dots and dashes, and 2 final words, transmitted clearly. I die. Then nothing. Just static and open ocean. No wounds on the bodies, no signs of struggle, no explanation. Not then, and not now. But the discovery that followed was worse than the message. And the secret this ship was carrying may have been the deadliest cargo to ever cross these waters. To understand what happened to the Ourang Medan, you have to understand the world it sailed through. 1947 was a world still bleeding from the war. Southeast Asia, freshly liberated from Japanese occupation, was now trying to shake off its European colonizers. The Dutch were fighting to hold their massive colonial interests in what would soon become Indonesia. British, American, and Dutch warships patrolled these waters constantly, but beneath the official naval traffic ran something darker. Black market smuggling routes crisscrossed the region. Weapons, chemicals, opium, and in some cases, leftover military stockpiles that no government wanted to acknowledge. The Strait of Malacca, just 1.7 miles wide, at its narrowest point, was the single most important and most dangerous shipping lane on Earth. Ships moved through it constantly, but not all of them were on the books, and the Ourang Medan, a name that translates roughly from Malay as man from Medan, after the largest city on the island of Sumatra, doesn't appear in a single shipping registry. Not Dutch, not Indonesian, not British, not anywhere. A ship with no paper trail, in waters full of secrets. The SOS was picked up by multiple receivers, the American merchant vessels Silver Star and City of Baltimore, along with Dutch and British listening posts scattered across the region. Using the transmissions, they triangulated the broadcast and narrowed down a likely position roughly 50 miles from where the Ourang Medan had last reported. But the signal itself was wrong. Not just the content, the structure. Standard maritime distress calls follow strict formats. This one didn't. It read like a man who knew he was dying and had seconds to explain what he couldn't understand. The message asked for a doctor first, begged ships with shortwave wireless get touch doctor, then described officers dead in the chart room. Then it collapsed into noise. Then the 2 words that stopped every radio operator cold, I die. Several medical stations in Germany, Rome and France responded, but the Ourang Medan never answered again. The Silver Star, captained by an American merchant officer, was closest. He altered course immediately. It would take several hours to reach the coordinates. When they did, what they found was silence. The Ourang Medan floats dead in the water, engines off, no lights, no smoke from the funnel, no figures on deck, not even a lookout posted. The Silver Star tries to hail her. Megaphone calls echo across the gap. No reply. Signal flags go unanswered. Radio silence holds. There is something deeply wrong with a ship that does not move and does not answer. Every sailor knows this instinctively. A ship that drifts is either abandoned or worse. But the Ourang Medan isn't listing. She isn't taking on water. She simply sits there, bobbing in the tropical heat, as if waiting for someone to come aboard. The Silver Star's captain orders a boarding party. A boat is lowered. Armed men row across the gap. They climb up the side of the Ourang Medan, and everything changes. The first thing they see is the bodies. Dutch sailors lie sprawled across the deck, on their backs, arms outstretched, mouths frozen open. Their eyes are wide, their teeth are bared. As a May 1952 report from the United States Coast Guard's Proceedings of the Merchant Marine Council would later describe it, their frozen faces were upturned to the sun, mouths gaping open and eyes staring. Not one of them has a wound, no blood, no bruises, no marks of any kind. They look as if something invisible hit every man on this ship at the same moment, and whatever it was, they saw it coming. The boarding party pushes deeper. The captain lies dead in the chart room, exactly where the SOS said he would be. Officers are scattered across the bridge and the wheelhouse. In the communications room, they find the man who sent the distress call, still seated at his station, his fingers locked on the Morse code key, his face twisted into the same expression as everyone else. He was the last man alive on this ship, and he died mid-sentence. But the worst discovery is still ahead. The boarding party moves below, and here, the story becomes something that no rational explanation has ever fully accounted for. In the boiler room, a space that on any operational ship would be the hottest compartment aboard, easily exceeding 110 degrees Fahrenheit in tropical waters, the rescuers feel something impossible. Cold. Not coolness, not a draft, a penetrating, unnatural chill, despite the equatorial sun hammering the steel hull above them. Reports would later estimate the temperature inside the boiler room at roughly 40 degrees Fahrenheit. More bodies lie here, wearing the same frozen expressions of terror. And then there is the dog. The ship's dog is dead too. Its face locked into a permanent snarl, teeth bared, as if it had been growling at something no one else could see in the moment it died. The Silver Star's captain makes the call: tow the Ourang Medan to the nearest port. Let investigators figure out what killed these men. The tow lines are secured. The convoy begins to move, but they don't get far. Smoke begins pouring from the Ourang Medan's number 4 cargo hold. Within minutes, the smoke turns to fire. The Silver Star crew cuts the tow lines immediately. The Ourang Medan explodes. Witnesses describe the blast as powerful enough to lift the freighter out of the water. Her hull splits apart. She slips beneath the surface of the Strait of Malacca in seconds. Every body, every clue, every answer, gone. But the story doesn't end at the bottom of the strait. 10 days after the Ourang Medan exploded, a lifeboat washes ashore on the island of Taongi in the Marshall Islands, over 4,000 miles from the Strait of Malacca. Inside are 7 men. 6 are dead. The 7th is barely alive. His name, according to the account first published in the Dutch-Indonesian newspaper De Locomotief in 1948, is Jerry Rabbit. He claims to be the 2nd officer of the Ourang Medan. A missionary on the island takes him in, and before Jerry Rabbit dies, reportedly of exhaustion just days later, he tells a story that reframes everything. Rabbit says he was recruited in Shanghai on June 7, 1947. No one checked his papers. No one asked for qualifications. The ship, he says, was a former Chinese steamer operating under the name Ourang Medan, a name no registry carried. Before departing, 15,000 crates of unknown cargo were loaded aboard at night across multiple Chinese ports. The ship's destination, Costa Rica. Rabbit realized immediately this was a smuggling operation. Soon after leaving port, stokers and engine room workers began complaining of stomach cramps and fatigue. Rabbit informed the captain, he was dismissed. When the first crew member died, the captain recorded the cause as heart attack. Rabbit didn't believe it. He snuck into the captain's cabin and opened the ship's logbook. What he found listed inside changed everything. Sulfuric acid, potassium cyanide, and nitroglycerin. The sulfuric acid was leaking. Mixing with seawater in the hold, it was producing toxic fumes, odorless, invisible, lethal, that were creeping through the ship's ventilation and killing the crew one by one. Rabbit didn't wait. He grabbed the logbook, convinced 6 other men, and they fled in a lifeboat. He alone survived the ocean, and he died before anyone could verify a single word. Jerry Rabbit's story is impossible to confirm and impossible to fully dismiss. No record of a man named Jerry Rabbit exists in any maritime crew registry. No lifeboat was ever officially recovered. The missionary's name has never been verified, but the problems run deeper than one dying man's confession. The Ourang Medan does not appear in Lloyd's Register of Ships, the authoritative record of every seagoing merchant vessel in the world. No Dutch shipping archive contains a construction record, a crew manifest, or an insurance claim. The Silver Star existed. It was a real American merchant vessel, but its own logs contain no record of a rescue attempt, a distress call, or an explosion. The earliest known version of the story wasn't even published in 1947. It appeared in 1940, 7 years before the supposed incident, in Il Piccolo, a newspaper in Trieste, Italy, written by a maritime radio operator and freelance journalist named Silvio Shirley. He authored a series titled Dramas of the Sea. That version placed the ship near the Solomon Islands, not the Strait of Malacca. The details were different, but the bones of the story, the SOS, the dead crew, the explosion, were already there. Then in 1948, a Dutch-Indonesian newspaper called De Locomotief published a 3-part series, sourcing its information entirely from the same Silvio Shirley. And yet, in 1952, the United States Coast Guard published a summary of the incident in its own official journal, The Proceedings of the Merchant Marine Council. And in 1959, a CIA analyst named C.H. Mark Jr. wrote a classified letter referencing the Ourang Medan by name, connecting it to broader questions about unexplained maritime disappearances, a ship that doesn't exist on paper, discussed in the pages of the United States Coast Guard and the files of the CIA. So what killed the crew of the Ourang Medan? Theory 1. Carbon monoxide poisoning. A malfunctioning boiler could have flooded the ship with odorless, colorless gas, killing the crew at their stations. Carbon monoxide would explain the lack of wounds and the fire that followed, but it doesn't explain the cold in the boiler room. And it doesn't explain why everybody wore the same frozen expression of terror. Carbon monoxide kills quietly. Its victims lose consciousness. They don't die screaming. Theory 2. Chemical cargo. This is the most widely accepted explanation, and the one Jerry Rabbit's confession supports. Potassium cyanide and nitroglycerin, improperly stored, reacting with seawater to produce hydrogen cyanide gas. The gas kills the crew. The nitroglycerin eventually detonates, destroying the ship and all evidence. It explains the deaths. It explains the explosion. It even explains why the ship wasn't registered. Smugglers don't file paperwork. But it doesn't explain the chill in the boiler room. And hydrogen cyanide causes seizures and convulsions, not the rigid, eyes open, mouth gaping postures that every account describes. Theory 3. Japanese nerve agents. During the war, Japan's Unit 731, a covert biological and chemical weapons program based in Harbin, China, developed and stockpiled nerve agents, including tabun. After Japan's surrender in 1945, The United States military seized these stockpiles. No American ship could transport them. It would leave a paper trail. So the theory goes, load the nerve agents onto an unregistered vessel, crew it with expendable men, and ship it across the Pacific. A leak would kill everyone aboard silently, and the ship's destruction would erase the evidence. This theory explains almost everything: the missing records, the crew's expressions, the explosion. But there is no documentary proof that the Ourang Medan ever carried military cargo. And the one man who claimed to know what was in the hold, Jerry Rabbit, named commercial chemicals, not nerve agents. Every theory gets close. None of them arrive. The Ourang Medan lies somewhere at the bottom of the Strait of Malacca. No salvage operation has ever been attempted. No wreckage has ever been found. No government has ever claimed the ship. No family has ever come forward to identify a single member of its crew. Whatever was loaded into that hold in a Chinese port in the summer of 1947, whatever killed every man aboard without leaving a mark, it sank with the ship. The ocean closed over it, and the strait kept moving, as it always does. Hundreds of vessels passing through every day, right above whatever is left of the Ourang Medan. The radio operator is still down there. His hand is still on the key. His last two words are still the only honest thing anyone has ever said about this ship. I die. Some mysteries aren't unsolved. They're unfinished. The Ourang Medan isn't a ghost story. It's a warning that the sea keeps the secrets we were never meant to bury. If you want to hear the stories of what else these waters have swallowed, the ships that vanished, the crews that were never found, and the questions the ocean still refuses to answer, subscribe to Chronos Rebuilt. There is always another ship that never came home. Watch the next one now.